Hey, vinyl community, Jeff again. Hey, us old guys have a big problem when it comes to the records that we play the most because the music that we listen to in the 60s, 70s, and 80s has a huge head start on the stuff that came after that, um, if we still listen to it. Uh, so I'm going to do this albums that I listen to the most based on the last 25 years or so. And lots of what you'd expect here. Lots of list toppers and things that you've seen on best ofs and top and favorites threads and all those kind of things. But there might be a couple of surprises in here. um, Also going to add, I'm going to insert, these are in no particular order, generally no order, except for a couple of things. I'm gonna insert three jazz albums into this list, not just to arbitrarily tack on some jazz albums. They actually belong in this list. I don't know where, but they are among my most played records. In, like I say, in recent decades. Um, but first, some bubbling unders. How about that? Everybody's talked about what a difficult exercise this is, and it is. I could get it down to about 15 real easy. Cut it down, below 20 or 15 or so is really easily. But those last few cuts are tough to make. Anyway, so some bubbling unders. How about this one? The band's music from Big Pink and the debut album. Those almost made the list. And how about these two? I've talked about playing these to death. Muswell Hillbillies by the Kinks, and something else also by the Kinks. This was kind of the first one. This became kind of the second one of my most played. Then there's the Rolling Stones, and we've all got. We all know about the big 4 or 5 albums of theirs, and these back in the day were ones that I played the most for years. But now I'm back to a different one. I'm back to a different one that was also one that I was fixated on back in the day. And yes, it's one of the 4, 5, 6 big albums of theirs. Can you guess which one it is? It's coming up. Here's some more bubbling unders on CD because I just don't have them on vinyl. That's the other thing too, is that I'm only showing what I have. Because like back in the day, I had Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, and if I'm honest, I played that as much as anything. In fact, I might have played that more in a 3-year period than anything I've ever played. But it's funny, it just stopped, like just a hard stop, and I didn't play it anymore, and I don't even have it in my collection. But anyway, here's a few CDs that I had on vinyl as well, and CDs, and I played the hell out of them. And if you'd have asked me in the 80s or 90s, this would have been on the list for sure. Here's another artist where this was my old favorite, my most played, and my go-to, whatever you want to call it, but now it's a different one, and you'll see that. Here's another one. I played the crap out of this thing. This is Kiko by Los Lobos. Great album. Played the hell out of this thing. Either CD in the car or streaming or what have you. So yeah, lots of bubbling unders and tough to make the cut. So now the actual list. I'm going to start off with this one. This is Bram Tchaikovsky. Strange Man, Changed Man. Absolutely flippin' ridiculous how much I played this record. Why this one? Because it's not an earth-shattering album. It's a fun little pop, sort of power pop, Brit pop kind of album, but it has a sort of a ties me back to a very particular time in my life with friends and musicians that I was hanging out with, and we all liked this album. We all had this album, and so it's kind of a special one for me. How about this one? I've talked about this one before, just recently. This year's Model by Elvis Costello. This is one that has stood the test of time. You could go back 20 years and this would be on the list, obviously, but you go back 40 years and this would be on the list too. So this has stood the test of time of many decades. How about this one? Dire Straits' debut album. I love this album. This is a great album, and Dire Straits is different though. You know, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a rocker, a rock and roller, a hard rock fan who doesn't like Dire Straits. I mean, that's pretty common. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. I'm sure they aren't. He's not shredding like in the typical sense, and they aren't smash and crash like a hard rock band. But it's still blues-based stuff. It's still blues-based. His tone and his picking is just fantastic, and his tricks with the volume knob where he'll hit a note, a chord or whatever, and then roll it up on the volume so that you just hear the sustain of this, so you don't hear the strike. It's great. It's great. It's all feel, man. It's all feel. Great feel too. That doesn't have to be in your face, smash and crash all the time. Now, granted, Money for Nothing, and I Want My MTV and stuff like that, where he was using some fuzz tone and stuff like that. And those I can understand not really thinking much of those songs because they're really simplistic rock songs, and we heard them too much. But I still love this album. One more thing I was going to say is his lyrics, his imagery is fantastic. I mean, he paints a picture with his words. I mean, just check out Wild West End or Skate Away off of Making Movies, and most all of this album too. Get past Sultans of Swing, and this is just a great listen. Sort of soothing, sort of mellow, but lots of feel. Here's a guy I've been talking about a lot, but not necessarily this album. Van Morrison's It's Too Late to Stop Now. I play the hell out of this too. Not my favorite Van Morrison album. That would be St. Dominic's Preview, which I have said in recent videos, but this is the one I play the most. And then back in the day, way back in the day, it would have been this one was one of my most played. Great album. Great album. But nowadays, in the last 20 years or so, it's this one, Spirit in the Dark. I love this album. This is really a strong, unlike some of her other albums, which all have, a smash hit or two on them, either Think or Respect or Say a Little Prayer or I Never Loved a Man. All those albums, Lady Soul, they all have big smash hits on them. This is just a strong album without a huge smash hit on it. There definitely were some hits on here, minor hits, and got some radio play. This is a strong album, and I also like it because that's not a very good picture on the cover. It's grainy, out of focus. You can barely see her, but you know it's her, and it really fits with the title of the album too, Spirit in the Dark. When you're in the dark, you can't see very well, but something else moves you, and this album is chock full of that kind of stuff. My favorite Aretha Franklin album, and the one that I play the most. Okay, how about a couple of jazz records? And like I said, these aren't just tacked on. These actually belong in the list somewhere. I could have done a separate list of just jazz selections, 10 jazz selections, but I'm too lazy. So I'm just going to show you a few of them here. This one, first of all, Johnny Hodges and Billy Strayhorn's orchestra. This thing is big fun. Big fun. Hodges, I think, came out of Ellington's orchestra, and Strayhorn is associated with Ellington too. But this is not like most Ellington. This is big, fat horns, fun, in your face, over the top goodness. One of my favorite jazz albums and one that I play the most. And then there's this one, Oscar Peterson Plays My Fair Lady. This one's kind of a sentimental favorite. Not kind of a sentimental favorite. It's definitely a sentimental favorite. This was a favorite of my dad's, and it's also a favorite of mine that I play all the time. Now, Oscar Peterson is kind of, for people who were adults in the 1960s, like our parents and grandparents, Oscar Peterson was like sliced bread or something. I mean, there was some in just about every house, every household. Oscar Peterson, pretty common stuff. But I have taken that and same for me. I heard a lot of it as a kid when my parents would play it. But I carried that forward and also play it myself and have quite a pretty decent Oscar Peterson collection. But this one stands out. Different drummer on this one. I forget who it is. I was going to look it up. I forgot to do that. I forgot to check before I started this video. For many years, the trio was comprised of Oscar Peterson, Ray Brown on bass, and Ed Thigpen on drums. Different drummer on this album. Forget who it is, and I don't know why, but it seems like he must have played a little bit differently than Ed did, because it gave Ray Brown more space to bend and slide things, and there are some hooks on this thing that just slay. Okay, this next one's kind of a new entry, but it's definitely, one of the ones that I play the most. I just got this about 2 years ago. Wayne Shorter's Speak No Evil, and it's like I said, it's a new entry, and this is often sort of included among albums for people who are just getting into jazz, and I guess that applies to me. I'm a little bit beyond just getting into it, but I can still appreciate the beginner stuff. And I shouldn't say beginners, because this is great jazz. This is great jazz, but there's something intangible about this album that makes me want to play it more than say Hank Mobley or Lee Morgan or that kind of stuff. And then here's another one I've shown recently, The Pretenders. Another one that stood the test of time. This is, if we go back 40 years, so for this one, just like this year's model, I've been playing this right on through, either on CD or streaming or whatever. Okay, Stones. Which of the big 4, 5, 6 albums did I revert back to? This one. And this zipper is missing in this particular copy. Sticky Fingers. It's funny, this was my most played when I was a young man because of Brown Sugar and Bitch. And maybe a little bit after that, I got really heavily into Can't You Hear Me Knocking because of that killer opening riff. But you know what? As I get older, songs like Moonlight Mile are what do it for me now. Okay, these last 3 are definitely the top 3. I don't know what order they're in, but these 3 probably more than any of those others. First of all, Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks. This might be the one I played the most, actually. It sort of feels like in my memory that there were more sort of long periods of time where I played this incessantly. Like I said, during periods of time. If you're down, if you're depressed or in a dreary place, don't start listening to this album. You might never stop. This one, my favorite artist, bar none, Tom Waits, Mule Variations. Like I said, it used to be Rain Dogs was my most played, but last 20 years or so, this one. I think this came out in 99, I think. And then this one I just showed, and like I said, one of my most played CDs ever, still to this day, John Hiatt's Bring the Family. Okay, that is it. Those are my 10 plus a few most played albums. Talk to you later.